vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe, hey.
It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe, ayy.
It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe, hey.
It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe, ayy.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Vibe Podcast. We got Mr. Ira Curry in the building. What is going on, man?
What's up, Kurshin? I'm super ecstatic. It's our first episode at the Vibe Podcast. It's about to go down. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready, boy. It's a vibe, man. This is a vibe. So, man, we got a big vision for this whole Vibe Podcast. Man, just share a little bit about what God is actually showing you about this.
Yeah, so for those of you who are tuning into the Vibe Podcast, God dropped a vision, and the vision was simple. He wanted us to create a podcast that could relate to everyday people. Typically, we're always creating Christian content. We're still going to create Christian content, but we're going to do it in a way that can relate to everyday people. And so at this time, God is asking us to reach people on a bigger and broader scale, to be in the world, but not of the world. You see, sometimes you got to act like the people you're called to serve in order to get their attention. And some of those people, they just may not have the relationship with God like we do. In fact, they may not even know God. Right, Christian?
Yeah, 100%. Like, it doesn't really matter what the whole point of this is to reach new people, to see where they're at as well and to provide a perspective that um, God is in every single thing, whether they are unbelievers or not, and God's heart for them, really. So, man, part of the vision that God is giving me as well is that this thing is going to bring all the entrepreneurs, all the entertainers, and the celebrities of tomorrow. They're going to bring them in, and we're just going to expand the kingdom throughout all of this. Yeah. So, where are you at in all of this, man?
Man, I think it's such a vibe that upcoming entertainers, influencers, and celebrities are going to be sent here to help us expand the kingdom. Man, it's a beautiful thing. And where I'm at with it, I'm pumped, bro. And so that kind of brings me into the conversation that's going to set the tone for the first episode of the Vibe Podcast. This is what it is, bro. How do we handle criticism, specifically when God is asking us to switch it up on Him? If God is telling us to do something that may come across as offensive to others who were connected to us in a previous season, how do we deal with that, man? Like, how do we keep it 100 by doing what God is telling us to do when we may be judged by others for doing that?
Man, honestly, we gotta love them. Because we gotta realize everyone's at different points in their life. People are unhealed. People are going through, toxic relationships or whatever it is, right? They just are going through stuff, and God is dealing with them in the way that they need to be dealt with in those moments. And so, the more I've realized that when God is elevating you, He needs to broaden your audience, right? And the only way to broaden your audience is to literally sound a little bit different every single time. And so what God is doing now, and He's switching it up, we're reaching a bigger audience in this. So dealing with any kind of criticism from people who may think, oh man, this is something so different. This is not even Christian. What are you guys doing? Like all of a sudden they just hear some people cussing or whatever it is, right? It's not about that. What it's about is reaching and touching people's hearts and showing them that it's about a relationship with God. That's what it's really about. And so just deal with people with love and just know that not everybody is your audience. There's going to be the naysayers. But at the end of the day, the right ones are going to be listening.
Deep. Hey guys, so go ahead and put a heart in the comments if you like them jewels that Christian Joseph just dropped. Bro, so you talked about when God is elevating you, He wants to broaden our audience. And sometimes what was inappropriate in one season may become appropriate in a new season in order to get the attention of the people we're called to serve. And so I just want to talk to our listeners right now. Like, let us know in the comments, have you guys ever been asked by God to do something that perhaps didn't sit well with the people within your lives? Let us know in the comments. Christian, I love how God is saying create something that the culture can relate to. Man, I think it's so sexy because for so long we've been in this box confined to Christians. And in one season, those desires was okay, but in this season, it's like, God, there has to be more, right? Like, how are we going to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth if we're not able to relate to the people within the earth? You know, an old mentor once said, don't be so spiritually good that you're no earthly good. We got to be able to relate to the culture in a way that captivates their attention, because when it's all said and done, it will bring God glory. And dude, I just hear guys saying that the Christians, they're already taken care of. Like, I got my people. I need you guys to go out and become fishers of men, men who are in the world, but do it in a way that they can relate to it. I'm gonna turn it back over to you, G.
Powerful, man. You got to leave the 99 for the one. And I love that you have such respect for people, man. You really do. And you even said that on one of your Facebook posts recently. You said something along the lines of, I have a lot of respect for people, and like we're all not perfect or whatever it was, and we don't have to pretend to be. Can you like just touch on what was going on in that post you made?
Yeah, man. So the post was about keeping it 100 with yourself. I shared in the post that I got a lot of respect for authentic people. I mean, they may not be perfect, but at least they're not pretending to be. Being authentic is staying true to who you are and the season that you find yourself within. And for me, staying true to who you are is acknowledging that your character is always changing. When I was a CEO running the day-to-day operations of my company, I had to be direct, straight to the point. Let's get down to business. But when I became the business coach who was now helping other CEOs start and grow their businesses, I had to act like the business coach. So that means I had to have more empathy, compassion, and patience. But then there were seasons where I had to transition to the entertainer. This looked like showing my personality, telling jokes, entertaining people, but in a way that motivated, encouraged, and inspired them. And so keeping it 100 with yourself is what God wants us to do in this season. You gotta be who God called you to be today and not who God called you to be yesterday. If you keep it 100 with yourself, you'll be more inclined to keep it 100 with God. You want to come in on that, big dog?
For me, for myself, man, I need to be so authentic to myself. It's so crazy because God literally shifts you at times, like the grace that He gives you, and I really feel it in these very moments because God has shifted me so much over this past year. Um, I was so into the prophetic and so on. I was building with God. I was creating the vision that He was giving me, and I needed to flow a certain way because I was training up the apostles and the prophets and stuff like that, right? And they needed the prophetic. But now God has shifted me so much, and I am not functioning the same way, right? Yes, I can still do all those things, but it feels very different, which is very interesting. So, in finding authenticity in all of that, I have to remain true to what God is doing inside of me in this moment, you know? Um, and that's how I'm kind of keeping it real with God because I had to go through such a not yes a crushing kind of thing, but at the same time it was a purging to be able to handle this new type of crowd that we are about to bring in with the Vibe podcast. you know so yeah, man, that's kind of my perspective on it. But yeah, we need to be authentic always, no matter what we do. People can see it. They can see your heart. No matter what it is, they can see your excellence and the quality that comes out of you. So yeah, that's my perspective on that, man.
I'm tapped in, bro. You know, man, like I love how you said in so many words that God will switch it up on you, and you have to be willing to go with the flow. What resonated in one season may no longer resonate in this season, and that's totally fine. Man, I want to talk about Lot's wife, right? Like, gee, I think it's a very interesting topic because Lot's wife was headed to her next level and she was moving towards her purpose, promise, and destiny, but she started to look back. Little mama out in the field, she's headed towards where God wanted her to go, and all of a sudden she looking back at it. So I want you to talk to us from today's perspective, where everyone can relate, not just Christians. Like, what happens when you feel in your heart, or if you feel that God is leading you to your promised land and you feel tempted to look back? Like, how do we not look back? We the people asking.
Honestly, man, dude, I probably felt like Lot's wife like so much. You become so familiar with where like God had you, and it tasted good. There's certain things that tasted good. It felt good to be a part of that, and Lot's wife like I was thinking about it, and she was probably an entrepreneur, a businesswoman. She probably would have had her friends, her cliques, and all her lady friends or whatever would have come over, would have helped her cook, would have, danced around, had fun. Obviously, for I don't know, probably didn't have any radios and stuff, back then. But yeah, they would have had fun, and now she's got to let go of that, right? That's what happens in our daily lives as well. When God is getting ready to shift you out of your season, He'll literally like start to cut off people from your life. And so in those moments, right, your heart is longing for to look back, right? But God is literally saying to you, no, my face is in this direction, and I want you to look and see the bigger vision, because I didn't create you just to stay where you're at right now. You know, when we come into the world, we're born with a certain vision, and everyone always asks you, "Oh, what's your dream? What's your dream? What's your dream?" And we try to say, "Oh yeah, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a fireman, or whatever it is. I want to be a lawyer." But that's not your real dream. That's not the real thing. The real thing is what you were created to do in the first place. It's part of the assignment that you were sent to earth for. um, and I believe everyone has that, right? If they choose to have that. Otherwise they just use the talents that God had given them. And so those talents, those gifts, etc., got to be put to work, right? And if you don't use it, well, it's not like you're not gonna lose it. It's not like a muscle, where it'll atrophy, but you will still have that ability because it's a natural thing inside of you, and God is waiting for you to use that so that He can make room for you in the world. And so the only way forward is to start using that to serve a higher audience, a bigger audience. If we're going to be like Lot's wife and just look back, man, God doesn't want you just to have 100 people inside of your membership if you're an entrepreneur. He wants you to have thousands. He wants you to reach millions. It says um, your gift will make room for you in the world, right? And so it'll also usher you into the presence of the great. And so that's what God wants. He doesn't want you looking back. He wants you looking forward. Um, so for yourself now, how do you do that, my friend?
Looking back for me is not an option. I'm not going back to the things that was once a part of my life because that appointed time has ended. If God decides to move me back into an old thing at some point, I'm sure it'll be a time when I can handle that old thing. When God is moving us forward, we have to move forward and not look back. Because if we look back, we go back and we turn into a pillar of salt like Lot's wife did. And this is where we get stuck in that old thing, the old patterns, the old relationships, the old jobs, the old mindsets, the old habits, when God is trying to do a new thing. When I'm moving into the new thing, I'm cutting off everything that reminds me of the old thing.
Oh, that's good, man. Okay, so what about you, man? Like, how do you keep it 100 with God?
How do I keep it 100 with God? I don't keep it 100 with God. I keep it 100 with God. Keeping it 100 with God gives Him permission to change our hearts. When I entered into the wilderness in 2019, the Lord was clearly telling me to let go of certain sins, certain relationships, habits, and mindsets, but I didn't want to do it. We know that God knows everything, but sometimes we don't speak about certain things with Him, as though we have no clue that these things we're keeping from Him is actually happening. Like, God, you're telling me to let go of this sin, but I actually like this sin. Like, I want to drown in this sin. And conversations like this was my way of keeping it 100 with God. And the beautiful thing was that it was that He didn't judge me. He started to show me that, Ira, that's what I wanted. I wanted you to keep it real with me. I wanted you to share your heart with me. I wanted you to have a heart to heart with me, because when you do that, when you start feeling, you start healing. And you ultimately give me the permission to change you. So guys, when I was in a situation where I could be truthful with God, where I could be my most authentic self, when I could keep it 100 with God, not only did He change the desires of my heart, but He made it possible for me to keep it 100 with others. The more I became authentic with God, I was able to become authentic with myself. I think this ties in nicely into our next segment. The more we get serious about keeping it 100 with God, ourselves, and those we love, sometimes God will cut off old things in order for us to become a new thing. And Christian, some of your fans and followers on Facebook, they said God is about to cut off old seasoned people. What does that mean to you, man?
Man, okay, I was pretty much in like prophetic mode for that, right? But
Yeah.
it wasn't just about cutting people off in the natural. It's about cutting people off in the spiritual too, in your heart, because if, like we were talking about holding on, like Lot's wife before, you're holding on, and it's also just in your heart sometimes, not just necessarily in the natural. So cutting off those old seasoned people means that God's freeing up your heart to embrace the new season people, embrace what He really has in store for you, which is always going to be quality or quantity, depending on what it is, right? And so tying this back into being authentic, bro, like God needs us to be authentic with Him first so we can be authentic with everybody else. God needs us to be real in the secret place so that we can be real outside. And so when you're finally so real and you've been purified and refined in the secret place, and your heart is now just loving from the secret place, then when you go out and be authentic with everybody else, it's loving too, you know. And so it's really a big thing that God needs to cut off certain things in your life, especially like the flesh, right, and sins, right? We're talking about those two. Right? So He needs to cut away all these things to make you the best version of yourself, the highest level of what you can be. And it's for others, it's not just for yourself. We got a networking night coming up in the days ahead. Do you want to tell the guys about that a little bit?
Yes, sir. So, how many of you guys struggle with loneliness as an entrepreneurs? How many of you guys aspire to become an entrepreneur and would like to attend an online event to make connections, get inspired, and get access to those who've done what you wish to do? And how many of you guys are podcasters, digital creators, entertainers, and speakers who are looking to expand your network and build your audience? So, Christian and I, we're hosting a virtual networking night to help you guys make new connections, build and grow your audience, and connect with people who are just like you. And man, it's going to be a vibe. Picture yourself breaking out into private Zoom rooms where you'll be able to network with others, engage in meaningful conversations, play games, and meet your online bestie. You'll gain insights on growing your business, building your brand, and so much more. You'll also have the opportunity to promote your business or podcast during the open mic sessions to gain more traction. As we wrap up the night, imagine yourself being able to collect the contact information of everyone who attended the event so that you can stay connected to your new friends. This will provide you a great opportunity to stay connected with others long after the event is over. Think about all the connections you'll make and how that will make it possible for you to collaborate with others and do joint ventures. Y'all gonna tap in or what? The event is hosted online after work hours on March the 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Scan the QR code in the top corner of the cover photo or click the link below this video in the comment section to find out more and register today. Limited seats available. We're only accepting the first 100 people to sign up. Hundreds of people will be listening to this episode, so be sure to click the link or scan the QR code to register now. If you encounter an error message, the event is sold out and registration is closed. So y'all, be sure to get your tickets now by registering now.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for that. Guys, there's a certain side of God that many people don't talk about. And this is something that I discovered when, I had an encounter with the Father. And God is lonely. There's a loneliness to God. And so when you find God in your loneliness, that is one of the deepest sides of God you will ever find. And we're doing this networking night, right? And it's strange that we even mentioned this because this wasn't completely the point of the networking night. But I actually feel like, guys, if you're an entrepreneur, you're building stuff, you don't have the ideas, you want to talk it out, or whatever it is, guys, come to the networking night and let us meet you. Find partners, collaborate, all that stuff, all that good stuff. But we're here on this journey together, right? And so let's build a community. Let's do this the way God has intended it. There's a lot of people in my Heavens Entrepreneurs community, but I really believe that God wants to bring in so many kingdom leaders, celebrities, artists, entertainers, podcasters, broadcasters, you name it, from all walks of life, and He just wants to bring them all together, and He wants to build a kingdom family. And so this whole networking night, I think it's going to really blow up, man. So I'm really excited to host this with you, Ivor. So it's really powerful. So, man, anything you want to say before we close this out?
Man, y'all let us know in the comments, what did you like about today's episode and what would you like to hear on future episodes? Write a comment, let us know, and we'll consider your thoughts and comments for future episodes.
Guys, thank you so much for joining in. You are listening to the Vibe Podcast with Kurshin Joseph and Ira Kawi. We'll see you on the next episode.
It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe, hey.
It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe, hey.
It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe, hey.
It's a vibe, it's a vibe, it's a vibe, hey.